Um, Thank you for letting me know where y'all are from in the chat box. I'm Tosa Tuhar. I'm Oglala and Hunkpapa Lakota. I am located in Rapid City, South Dakota. Thank you all for joining me on a Saturday night to learn and discuss a difficult topic. It looks like everyone in this room has had experience with suicide ideation to some extent. So I just wanted to start with a quick prayer, and then we can go into it. Atewa Kantanka, thank you for bringing us here in this session together and at WJEF. I pray that you would help us all to gain knowledge and perspective and skills that we can use in our daily life to support our brothers and sisters who go through suicide ideation and who are emotionally and mentally suffering. God be with us, be with everyone at this conference and those who cannot be here. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so one thing I do want to say is that I am not an expert. Personally, I've done adult. Hi, Allison. Welcome. I've experienced a lot of events in my life regarding suicide, especially when I was a college student. That's when things really were difficult with friends, people I know, and then I also have lived experience in this area. So I just want to share what I know. I don't know everything. I'm always learning something new, and I think that we in this group can learn from each other. So please drop questions. You can unmute yourself if you have questions, or if you have something that you want to share, an experience, or some wisdom, please feel free. I want this to be interactive. So let's get into it. So this session may be triggering. So if we were doing this in person, I would have fidget toys. I would have things to help folks process pieces of paper. But since we're virtual, please feel free to reach out to Amy, a WJEF staff that you know. You could reach out to me, but I might not be able to respond to you until later on in the presentation or after. And I will be around after the presentation if folks have questions or just need to talk. The 3 points that I put together for this session, which really do relate to suicide prevention, is emotional suffering. It's seen and expressed throughout the Bible. God's prophets, his people, and even Jesus himself have been in situations of despair and have felt deep emotional suffering. In terms of comfort, I want to point out that God listens and responds, and we can do that too, in a way that represents ourselves, that ways that we can be a good relative, and we'll talk about like what that could look like, and then also culturally. And so at the end, we will be doing like a group piece, basically what the group in the morning did. So when we have time, we'll be able to do that too. Yeah. So one of the things I like to point out is that we treat mental health differently than we treat physical health as a society. And we treat how we respond to mental illness differently than we respond to physical illness. Um, so, for example, like this is what would look like if we responded to some physical ailment or physical situations and medical crises the same way we do when you see someone who's in a mental health crisis. You just need to change your frame of mind and you will get better. The guy's like hand is cut off. Have you tried, not having the flu? I don't think it's healthy that you have to take medication every day just to feel normal. Don't you worry, it's changing you from who you really are. And you see the person's taking insulin. Um, these things aren't helpful. It says helpful advice, but that's being sarcastic. Um, so one of the things that we need to change is like how we talk to folks who have mental health crises. I like to look at mental health illnesses as when I talk about them, I like to think about like a cell phone. So like my cell phone right now is having some issues. It's not broken on the outside. It lights up. It's still functional, but there are things inside it that need to be fixed, and you can't see it just by looking at the phone. So, if you're not familiar with mental health and mental illnesses, uh, this is like a whole like a whole 4 years or even 10 years of school. But basically, mental illnesses are just like that. They're illnesses. Mental health is like physical health. It can be good. It can be bad. It can be chronic. It can be acute, and it can be debilitating. And there are so many different types of mental illnesses, like there are so many different types of physical illnesses. And mental health illnesses are common. 1 in 5 people in the US is living with some type of mental illness. And here in South Dakota, a data study came out from 2019 that said that almost 1 in 5 high schoolers in my state has seriously contemplated suicide. And everyone's different. There are folks who could be experiencing depression, but they could not show it. They could be folks who are like super busy, high achieving, being that person that helps out everywhere, but then at the same time, they're not showing that inner struggle. Um, so it could be anyone. So then we talk about why suicide. What are some reasons why people get to that point? There are a lot of reasons and it's complicated, but what I can say is I found these 3 points which really resonate with me because these are the things that I've seen and I've experienced. Is that most people are driven to suicide when they view their current situation as being completely hopeless. They feel like they have no way to change things for the better, feeling trapped, unable to cope with that particular situation. When people were trying to, when they feel that there is no way out, they're looking towards suicide as a solution. When you're in a highly emotional state, it's hard to think rationally. Um, and then also impulsivity. There are folks who maybe don't show the signs or the symptoms of what someone who is experiencing suicide ideation may look like, or they might not even like consider it. It might just be a spur of the moment thing, and they did something that ended their life. And I am more than happy to share these slides so that you have the links and look back. And again, like if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box as I go through these slides, or you can unmute yourself and ask away. So one thing I do want to bring up is language. Destigmatizing mental health as a society is probably like the best way that we can reduce suicide overall. And changing that is changing the way we look at mental illnesses, the way we look at suicide, and our language. So, people will say committed suicide. The word commit holds a negative connotation as like people commit murder or sins. Dying, or we should try to say died by suicide because it avoids judgment. When someone dies by suicide, it's not necessarily their fault. When someone dies from cancer, it's not their fault. Again, these are illnesses. So looking at like when someone is in emotional turmoil and when they're in crises, their life is in danger, and they may not, and at times cannot control what they're feeling or their actions. So one thing I wanted to point out is that the Bible does express and address emotional pain. And why I focus on emotional pain is because suicide prevention is about helping those before they get to the point of feeling helpless and feeling trapped. And another thing I want to point out is we can't really measure suicide prevention. We tend to focus on those we have lost, but we don't really know how many people we've saved, whether it's just you being there for someone or you doing something to encourage someone else. Like, we don't know that unless someone tells us. So the Bible has so much empathy for emotional pain. It's throughout the Bible, and it's written everywhere. So this particular verse, this particular section, I would actually, would someone volunteer to read this? A little too quiet out there.
I would. Oh, go ahead.
Good, Brittany, thank you.
Hear my prayer, O Lord, and let me cry come to you. Do not hide your face from me in the day of my trouble. Incline your ear to me. In the day that I call, answer me speedily. For my days are consumed like smoke, and my bones are burned like a hearth. My heart is stricken and withered like grass, so that I forget to eat my bread. Because of the sound of my groaning, my bones cling to my skin. I am like a pelican of the wilderness. I am like an owl of the desert. I lie awake and am like a sparrow alone on the housetop. My enemies reproach me all day long. Those who deride me swear an oath against me. For I have eaten ashes like bread, and mingled my drink with weeping, because of your indignation and your wrath. For you have lifted me up and cast me away. My days are like a shadow that lengthens, and I wither away like grass.
Thank you so much, Brittany, for reading that. So when yeah, thank you. So when I read this, I see depression. I see the symptoms of someone going through a depressive mood or feeling hopeless, forgetting to eat, crying, even being angry at God, feeling hopeless. And let's see, I was pointing out others, feeling alone, being bullied, you know, my enemies reproach me, they swear an oath against me. These are things that we see every day still. Like there were bullies back then, there are bullies now. Crying, feeling troubled, needing someone to talk to, incline your ear to me. These are the signs of emotional pain, and um, this is these are also signs of these are concerns of someone possibly like considering suicide. Then we go to, so I want to ask like what does emotional suffering look like? What does it feel like? And how is it expressed? Do we have could do we have examples? I see Brittany said she's experienced and seen before, and it's gonna happen if we um, don't stop it. Sorry, my wife said it was unstable. Can you hear me? Okay,
You're good. You're good.
okay. So, what does emotional suffering look like? What have you all seen? Yeah, it can be painful physically. It can express itself in physical ways too. Um, Again, like these things really do impact the mind and the body. Thank you for sharing that, Amy. Um, okay. Well, I understand if you don't feel comfortable to share, that's totally okay. Um, yeah, it could look like a lot of things. It can feel like a lot of things. It could even feel like nothing. That is also feeling numb is also a way to um, be suffering emotionally. Okay. So Jesus himself knew what it was like to experience deep sorrow and heartbreak. This powerful verse, Jesus wept, says a lot. You know, Jesus cried. Um, when Jesus was on the mountain, um, he was really sorrowful. He was distressed. He said, "My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me." So as we know, he did not want to be alone. He was in a place of anxiety. He was sad. He knew that he was going to experience a lot of suffering. And fell on his face and prayed, "Oh, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me." We like hope that God would take away the things I felt, but knowing God and knowing Jesus, he was so strong that he said, "Not as I will, but as you will." And so we're thankful for Jesus' suffering. Actually, that he knows what that's like. He knows what it's like to be at the end of your rope, and he knows what it's like to be mentally exhausted. As we see, he talks about fox have holes, birds have nets, but where the Son of Man has not anywhere to lay his head. So one more verse, one more. Now we talk about Elijah, and I really like this these verses because it starts to tell us like how did God respond to someone who was in despair. So one of them. So you see that Jezebel was seeing Elijah and he was scared. Sorry, I'm gonna move my little boxes around. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, "So let God do to me, and more so if I do not make your life the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time." And when he saw that, he arose and ran for his life. He went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he prayed that he might die and said, "It is enough now. Lord, take my life, for I am better than my father's." So Elijah wanted to die. He wanted to get out of the situation, and he asked God to take his life. He wasn't exactly planning to take his own life, but he was asking God. He felt distressed. So what did God do? How did God address Elijah, who was in a mental health crisis? So as he lay and slept under a broom tree, suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, "Arise and eat." Then he looked, and there by his head was a cake baked on coals in a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. And the angel of the Lord came back the second time and touched him and said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." So he arose and ate and drank, and he went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights, as far as Horeb, the mountain of God. And there when he went into a cave and spent the night in that place, behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" So what I really like about this passage is that God responded by first bringing an angel to give Elijah food. Elijah was weak. He he didn't even have his basic needs met. So God brought him food, gave him something to drink, and Elijah rested. And God helped him become strong enough that he can go on this journey. And then when Elijah was strong enough and in a place where he was wanting to listen and being open to that, God asked him, "What are you doing here? What's going on, Elijah?" And so the passage, it goes on to show how, like, Elijah had a conversation with God, and God was able to help him get through his continued struggles. So I really like that because we talk about being a good relative. So in Lakota culture, we value being a good relative, meaning like you're taking care of others, you're helping out. When we go to someone's house or if somebody visits you, you always offer them something. So offering food or drink, asking if you can help. When people are in that situation where they just feel like their life is out of control, asking them if you could help them gives them some agency. It helps them feel like they have some decision or control in their life. Nurture and care for them. Are they sleep? Have they slept? Have they ate? Do they have like their basic needs taken care of? Because when you're in mental health crises and also trying to deal with those, you can't really deal with the larger problems without taking care of those basic needs. Give them your attention. And what that means is providing that space to really listen. Some people just need to talk it out. They just need a soundboard. They just need to get that out of their bodies. And be honest. It's okay to say, "I don't know. I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here to help." I don't know what that's like, but I'm so glad that you're talking to me. I'm so glad that you're here. Ask if you could pray for them or with them. If you have cultural practices like we smudge up here in the Plains, you can smudge with them. Ask if you can do a coping strategy with them, something that you like to do, whether it's coloring, watching TV, writing, taking a walk. Um, ask them, ask them what you can do to help them and why I'm on their healing journey. If that's like them get to a behavioral health appointment, um, being there for them when they're in those hard times, and then also don't forsake them, which I look at as okay, we've put out the fire. You're not in that mental crisis. I move on, follow up, check in, and don't make any promises that you can't keep. It's not a good idea to say, "Oh, tomorrow will be better." We don't know that. We don't know what tomorrow will hold, but we could say tomorrow is a new day. Um, we don't. I mean, we don't say that you're gonna feel better soon. We also don't know that, but we can say this moment in time won't last forever. And then practice self care. So self care means taking your own basic needs, implementing your own coping strategies because if you used to hold emotional labor for others, that can affect you in different ways, such as vicarious trauma, which is experiencing trauma from learning about other trauma. So those things that you do to heal and cope with negative situations in your life um, helps you be stronger and be able to be there for others. Any questions so far? Any thoughts? So, just some like sample questions. You can ask when someone's going through, yeah, thank you. Um, what can I do to help? So, we all are experts in our own mental health. We know what helps, we know what we need, because each of us is different and unique. But ask, to get someone talking, ask about what they did today, ask about how those things made them feel. I once had a exercise for college or for my grad program where every time I saw someone I knew, I asked about what were they doing, how whatever's going on in their life, and I asked, how do you feel about that? How are you feeling about that? And at first I was like, oh, are you a therapist? I'm like, no, I'm seriously asking. And then after a while, those people, like those friends, would just, when I'd see them, they just start talking about their feelings, develop that comfortability to be honest. Oh, what do you need from me? What do you need today? Where does it hurt? And then what do you do when you feel like this? What helps? You can help them troubleshoot what's going on by being that, I want to say soundboard. Nice. You apply these similar methods with the Christian Fight School. I'd love to learn more about that. What is Christian Fight School?
So it's a ministry that pretty much, we get together, we pray, we talk about we talk about Jesus, we have Bible studies, and then we pretty much go MMA with each other.
Nice. I want to be a part of that group.
Oh yeah, we have women's self-defense classes, and the women get the women get a kick out of it because some of them that come to us are suicidal, others are from spouse abuse,
Mm.
So it's like empowering them, or putting power back into their life through training and God.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Like that's so cool. Thank you for sharing, Leo. Things like that, it's important to get yes, Amy. So things like that, like ask them, would you like to bead with me? Would you like to do some art with me? Would you like to take a walk? Like what would you like to do? Could we do it together? You know, those things help them figure out what their coping ways of coping are. Because when you're in emotional crisis, those rational thoughts go out the window, and all at the time during those times, all you can hear is that negative inner voice, and like a person in life that can help you problem solve and get you into a headspace of like, what can I do to help myself is really important. Um, this line down here. So I'm trained in TPR, mental health first aid, and other things. And so there is a misconception about asking someone if thinking about killing themselves. Some folks that if you ask that, you're encouraging it. Um, in reality, people actually appreciate if someone acknowledges that they see they are possibly feeling that way, and they'll have that conversation with you. Um, so uh, this is like the like very distilled, like this is what you do in case of a crisis, but there's some free trainings you can take out there. I do have like a couple links at the end of the slides, but if they say yes, um, then you may want to ask, do you have a plan? If they say yes, then that puts them at such a high risk that they're going to hurt themselves. You want to get them safely to professionals. Um, and those resources could be other things in your community. These are the general things like the emergency room or calling 911. But if there are like suicide prevention services in your community or a crisis care center, I recommend getting familiar with those and seeing if you can take someone there or get whatever help, because we want to make sure that they're safe. Let's see. So another thing, and I'm probably preaching to the choir. Oh, another question, Amy. Would you, say more about having a plan is more serious? So, um, when we're doing like these informal assessments, we'll ask a lot. We'll ask a few more questions. Like, um, we'll probably even ask, like, do you think about death? Yes. How often? Every day. Um, do you think? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Um, Kind of. Yeah. Do you have a plan? No, not really. I don't have a plan. Um, so if they don't have a plan, then that means that they tend to not be in that situation where they're that much into it that they're gonna act. But that's not fact. Like if someone doesn't have a plan, doesn't mean that they won't do it, because we talked about impulsivity. But that gives you an opportunity to talk to them more about what's going on and develop a strategy to get them the help they need. If they say that they have a plan, that's really serious, because they can enact that plan, and then a psychologist or a professional would probably ask more about that. Like, when do you plan on, like, when do you, like, what is your plan? When do you want to do it? But we are not professionals. We are not psychologists. I'm not a psychologist. I work in community behavioral health. Our number one priority is to get them to safety and get them to professionals who can assess them. And so when we're in this situation, when we have others in this situation, we want to remember that we can seek comfort in God. You know, these are some verses that really help me remember. And if you're helping someone going through suicidal ideation, there are verses that you can bring into that space. You know, the righteous cry out, and the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to those who have a broken heart and saves such as have a contrite spirit. I love this verse from Revelation. You know, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying, and there shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed. And I love, I think that was supposed to be Psalm 91. Might just, I mixed up, but I love Psalm 91 and Psalm 23. Those are really good Psalms to read together if someone's in distress or maybe for your own comfort. But those are my go-to when I'm going through a hard time. I just realized it says Psalm 19. And then tips on how to help yourself. Again, I wish I could go into so much detail with this, but I only have like the very distilled, watered down version because I can only go through so much in this session. So if you feel like if you have suicidality or you know that others do, you can help them create a safety plan, or you can create a safety plan for yourself. You can look up suicide safety plans. There's a lot of templates out there, and there's also even apps where you can input your safety plan. And some things you can put in a safety plan are, what are my warning signs that I'm not okay? Like what does that look like? How do I feel? What am I saying? Who do I call when I am in stress or going through crises? You want to list out at least 3 people you trust. You always want to have a helpline available. What are my coping strategies when I am in a situation? Is it smudging? Is it reading out loud like a prayer? Is it talking to so-and-so? What can I do to self-soothe? And why I like safety plans. Read it, try to memorize, like have it in a good place, because when you're in that high stress crises, it can think for you and guide you when you can't think rationally yourself. And remembering that there's nothing wrong with you and there's nothing wrong with getting help. Again, if you break your leg, unless you yourself are like a medical doctor that has like everything like right there for you to fix your leg, you're gonna need help. And it's okay to get help. Like, I always like think about again like how medical emergencies are treated differently than mental health emergencies. It's the same. Get some help. Go to professionals. It's okay. And get familiar with your local tribal suicide prevention and postvention programs. So postvention means programs where they have folks follow up after an event. Here in Rapid City, we have support navigators who work with youth who are at risk for suicide or have been hospitalized. We do that follow up, or they do that follow up. They keep connected with them and mentor them. And they basically walk with them in their journey. Find support in your community. Build that support. It doesn't cost anything to build a group of supportive individuals that can check on each other and talk to each other. And then build your safety net. Um, Having several folks that you can lean on is so important, and helping others find folks that they can lean on and trust. And then again, if you do not feel safe, you feel that you may harm yourself or you might harm others, go to the nearest ER or call 911. Help others. Sometimes we find our purpose, like when we feel really low and feeling again like we're not in a place of control. I personally, when I am like really sad, helping others actually takes attention away from my problems. And I don't know if that's a good coping strategy or not, but somebody's benefiting. It's not perfect, but helping others helps us realize that we're not alone. And then again, practice self-care. And then here's some resources. So for folks who do community organizing, the Native Suicide Prevention tools under SAMHSA, the Suicide Prevention Resource Center, has some really cool tools on how to do some community organizing around Indigenous suicide prevention. This is a free course in psychological first aid training. Mental health first aid is offered online. A lot of times it is free. You can look it up. QPR is also a training that's in a lot of communities. There are some like free QPR. There's a free QPR training out there, but it's not based in the US. So I encourage to like find any like free trainings out there. Oh, and We Are Native has a lot of good content for youth, and videos and stories and sharing. All right. So at this time, I would like us to think about like what we would say or what we want to say to those out there who are hopeless and brokenhearted. So I'm going to share a whiteboard, and we can draw, type, whatever you'd like, and we'll share that with WJEF. But I actually want to check in with everyone. How are y'all doing? I noticed this in like heavy stuff.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so I had a relative who did die by suicide this summer, and something that came up before she died was that she was doing so well. The month prior, she was doing amazingly well. She wasn't cutting herself anymore. She had a new boyfriend. Life was good. Her parents were so proud of her. And then, so it came as a shock to everybody when it actually happened. She'd been through a lot of emotional trauma years prior and was working through that. But the month or two prior to the suicide, she was really handling life well and excited about the future and talking about the future. And so I was wondering if there are any like hidden signs in there that we missed as her family members in the weeks and month leading up to her death.
Well, first, Megan, I'm really sorry for that heartbreaking loss. And thank you for sharing that in your question.
I got 3 of them.
There was, so one of the, one warning sign when it comes to suicide, and this actually came up in the other session, was this like influx of positive behavior and emotions.
Oh, wow.
We're human beings. For us to be super positive is not natural, just as it's not good for us to be super negative. So somebody who is suddenly like seeming euphoric and seems to be doing well, that in itself is a warning sign. And And again, like some folks who live with some deep depression or deep emotional distress will mask it by really putting on like a good face. And it's scary because when someone's in that situation, it's almost as if they don't trust anyone or they won't let anyone in. So folks like that, people in our lives like that who are acting like different than their typical selves or any like sudden changes, we need to look for that, whether they're positive or negative.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
And it's not your family's fault. It's nobody's fault. So I hope and pray that you all know that it's not.
Thanks for saying that. It was really a shock to everybody, and it's one of those things too that her immediate family is ashamed to talk about it. And so we didn't even know for a while of the cause of her death. And that's so sad in itself, right? Because a lot of healing, I think, is missing when you don't share and when you don't open up about what really happened. So yeah, but that makes a lot of sense as to when someone goes out of character, it just has that change, like you said, the change of behavior, change of mood, such a drastic change. Makes sense.
Thank you for sharing that. So we have 2 questions in the chat box. Could you go back to the slide with the questions that are helpful to ask? Yes. So here are the questions. Kristen had a question. When they're super positive, what types of questions do you ask then? I'm kind of in the same boat as Megan in that the first suicide loss in my life was a friend who was really positive and was excited about the future, and nobody had any idea. And I was 19 at the time and he was 16. I had no idea, and we had plans and left. And so I mean, I didn't know what to do then. I'm not sure what to do now, but if I was in that situation, my intuition would be acknowledging that there's a change in them and trying to dig deep into why that change happened, what changed. I understand you have to be in a really trusting position, but if you know them and you can have those honest conversations and even just say, you know, I'm worried about you. Are you okay? Have you ever asked someone, are you okay? And like they don't even know that they're not okay. And then once you ask that, they just start crying. That was me a lot of times. I think just checking in, you know, like getting them into a place where they can feel comfortable to share, obviously not in public. That stuff always happens to me in public, and so I'm like, I don't know. But creating a safe space is important too. And safe space meaning confidential. Oh, what are some ways? But yeah, you know, just doing your best, showing your concern, and being honest. You know, I'm worried about you. What's going on? This is, you know, there's a change in you. Brittany asks, what are some ways to help families in the grieving process? And what if the person in a mental health crisis doesn't want to ask for help? Those are 2 really good questions. So I just started volunteering for a Native community response team, and I'm learning that right now. We've had a couple of youth pass away in the community, and what we are doing is reaching out to the family. We don't know the families, but we reached out. We stopped by both of their houses and dropped off care packages, some food, some like toiletries, and then also introducing ourselves and letting them know like anything that you need, we're here to help. If you need someone to talk to, if we're here. This is, we're here for you. Um, if we're in not COVID times, we would probably be a lot more involved. Maybe it's like helping them with the funeral arrangements. Maybe it's just bringing food and checking in. Maybe it's sitting and crying with them, sitting in the pain, just letting them know that you're there for them. That's all we really can do. Okay, do we have 5 minutes? I think that, just being a good human being, showing compassion, as I said, like being a good relative. How would you like to be nourished? How can you nourish others? How can you bring your love and show love to those who are hurting? Okay, so let me I can drop these. I'm gonna drop these slides in the chat box, and then we can work on the board. But if there's any other questions, I can continue to talk while we're working on the whiteboard. Time goes by so fast. That might be it. Okay. So feel free to write whatever type of messages you would say to someone who's hurting, going through emotional distress, or brokenhearted. Messages of encouragement, anything you want. You can even draw a picture.
Does everyone know how to use it? Go up to the, yep, great, okay, good.
And again, I would really look into what are the community resources around this topic. Every tribal community is different. Some of them have volunteer response teams. There was one community I was working with, and they had a group of elderly that would sit with a person if they're in mental crisis, and feed them and talk to them. There are some tribes have like helplines when you can call. A lot of this is grassroots work. But yeah, I would definitely research what are the local resources you have. Research any free trainings. A lot of times those same organizations offer trainings like mental health first aid. We have a training that one of our cultural elders is doing out in our area called Lakota Mental Health First Aid. And I actually learned, so I've been working in community behavioral health like for a year now, and I've learned that culture is prevention. That culture can decrease suicide activity. Oh, I don't want that color. Any other questions or comments? Anything resonate with you? Anything you would like to share? Okay. Again, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if the mourning process looks differently for a suicide versus other forms of death, like the mourning and the grieving. Yeah, and just suggestions in that.
That's a really good question. I can't really say the difference, but I have been learning about this subject called ambiguous loss.
Mm,
You could write it down and look it up, and that is
mm,
something that a lot of tribal communities are experiencing because a lot of our deaths in our communities are traumatic and sudden. I think
mm-hmm,
that when a death comes unexpectedly in a community, it can leave a lot of trauma, even with like COVID-19.
mm-hmm,
And that goes along with ambiguous loss. Even folks of families who have people who went missing, like missing and murdered Indigenous women. So I think that
mm-hmm.
they would call that in a psychological world complicated grief. But I
Okay,
really like the idea of ambiguous loss, and I'd encourage you to look it up.
okay, thank you.
This is looking beautiful. And I just want to do one wellness check-in. If you were doing well, you can just type something in a chat box, like a smiley face or a thumbs up. I don't know if we could do emojis, but if you're doing well, give me some type of notification. If you're not doing well, I can reach out to you. Awesome, thank you. So I will stick around in the main. I think they'll kick us out in a little bit. I'll still be around, talk. Thank you all so much for being in this session. I appreciate you all, and um, thank you. And I'm with you on this journey to help others. And I just pray that God would be with us all and give us the wisdom to um, help those who are in need and guide us in what we can do for them and how to get help for them. In Jesus' name. Amen.
I'll stop the video for us.